Hello and welcome to another edition of For the Record. I'm Sean Murphy. My guest today is Bob Hollis. He is Executive Director of the Swamp Meadow Community Theater. We'll meet him and learn all about the theater when we come back, so stay with us. Welcome back to For the Record. I'm Sean Murphy. My guest today, Bob Hollis, Executive Director of the Swamp Meadow Community Theater. Does a lot of theater, doesn't do a lot of TV, but he is for us today. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Sean.
Now, can a person transition from the theater to in front of the cameras relatively easy? What do you think?
Without insulting TV stars,
Oh.
yes, I believe so.
Okay.
Because we get one take.
Theater is much harder,
I
isn't
think
it?
so. I think so.
All this can all be edited in post-production, but on yours, there's no editing. It's live, and that's it. you
That's
know?
right.
So
That's
you're just,
right.
and the other great thing about theater is you're getting that immediate audience reaction, and that's got to be one of the greatest thrills ever.
That is just things are so different, even from the last dress rehearsal
Yeah.
to the first performance. You know, things just come alive.
Yeah, it's never the same, I would
And
imagine.
that's a good thing. And the one thing I do talk to our actors about is that, you know, they're used to seeing movies now. They're not always used to going to plays.
Very true.
And in a movie, you can see the tear
Yep.
coming down a person's cheek. But on the theater, they've got to be acting big enough so that the person in the 30th row can see what's going on.
So for people who have not experienced it yet, tell them about Swamp Meadow Community Theater.
Well, for Swamp Meadow Community Theater, I come here for two reasons. I'm the executive director of
What does
the
that
Swamp
mean,
Meadow
by the
Community
way?
Theater. It means that
You're the boss.
well, it means that either I'm the boss or I have about 300 bosses, one or the other.
Right.
Because it's a nonprofit organization, and so everybody has their piece of the pie at this point, and I'm responsible to them as much as more than they're responsible to me.
Right, right.
So I'm the one that's trying to hold the reins on the horses that are running pretty hard.
You bring it all together. You put it all together initially, at least, right?
Well, we have a board,
Okay.
a board of 13 people that kind of do that, and my job supposedly is to try to just harness all that.
So that's your job as executive director, but
Yeah.
what else?
Well, the other reason I'm here is because I'm a proud father when it comes to Swamp Meadow Community Theater, because it was my 15-year-old daughter who started this 10 years
Wow.
ago. Well, she was 15 then. She's,
Right.
we lived in Foster. We found lots of wonderful, talented people. And she was interested in theater, and they didn't have a theater at the high school, and so she went to a local group called the Fostering Arts organization in town, and said to them, "There's so many people here. I think we should have a theater." And at 15 years old, they didn't turn her down. They didn't.
How
say,
could they?
They didn't say go start one at school.
What if you approached them? Would they have turned you down? I mean,
No.
do you have that sweet, innocent 15-year-old face? What do you think, Bob?
I guess.
Yeah.
But I was really proud of them, you know,
That's
because
great.
she went, she proposed an idea, and they said yes. They gave her support. They gave her funding. They gave her
That's the biggest
people,
part,
yeah.
right?
They gave her people that knew budgets, people that knew promotion, people that knew a little bit about organization, and said go. And so that made me as a father really happy. And then I got sucked into it. I used to be a coach.
Yeah.
But if my daughter was doing
director,
theater,
coach, it's kind of the same thing.
that's
isn't
what
it?
I figured.
Yeah.
And in 10 years, we've kind of gotten there, you know?
Describe to people if they don't understand exactly what community theater is, because it's much more local, obviously.
It is, and it's, although our name, Swamp Meadow, we purposely chose not to be Foster Community Theater.
So they could be more
'Cause
wide-ranging.
and we now branch out from Foster, which is in northwestern Rhode Island, all the way into northeastern Connecticut, southern Massachusetts. We reach as far as North Kingstown and Wakefield to the south, and as far as East Providence to the east.
You know,
so.
that wide-ranging reach that you have is the reason why this show, you know, today is airing in Connecticut and Rhode Island.
Right, great.
So, you know, just to get the word out a little bit more. But there is something, you know, I think, don't you think that a community is missing out if they don't have something like this, a local community theater where people can sort of, you know, it's a great way to express yourself and to show off your talents, and it brings the town together.
Exactly, exactly. And there are a lot of different even community theaters, but ours is an all volunteer organization, and it was set for that very reason, to do for anyone else in town what Fostering Arts did for my daughter. Was to say, if you have a desire, if you have an interest, if you have a talent, there's a place for you to let that shine. So we have people that are, you know, they thought maybe I'd like to do some art, and all of a sudden they're painting backdrops for Alice in Wonderland, or
wow, so it's not just the acting part of it that people think about when they think of theater in general. There are so many more behind the scenes things that people can be involved with.
Absolutely,
right?
absolutely. Because we have some people that say, oh, I don't want to be in theater. I never want to be on stage. And
you don't have to be.
But they're great techies, or they're backstage people that are able to put the right prop in the right hand at the right time, or we have some people that just like to bake things for our concessions, you know. But
yeah, it's a lot more than just performance on stage, right?
And that's what, to me, I guess the name community theater is, because that's what it is. It builds a community.
So how does it start out? Does someone have an idea and they want to put on a play, a performance? What's the process?
Yeah, well, the process 10 years ago was, now that they said yes to Amy, we had to do something.
Yeah.
And so it was 5 people saying, well, what play should we do? And just kind of bang.
That's a good point. That's not something they thought about when they just tried to get the theater going,
right?
Right.
So we started with Cinderella, and thought, well, it's a play that most of us know. Let's see what we can do. And we just put out a call, and some people came. I think we got 18, 19 people that were interested, and so we started Cinderella. And it wasn't until we were like halfway through rehearsals that we figured out we probably should have really put a call out for singers,
right?
Because it's a musical. We had 3 or 4 people that were really good singers, and a bunch of other folks that were more like me.
Yeah,
but,
kind of should be singing in the chorus or in the background, right?
Right. Or should be directing.
Yeah.
But it worked,
yeah.
And with that came somebody who built a well for us, you know, for a scene, and she was a RISD artist that did backdrop stuff for us, and the play just grew, and people in the community loved to come and see people that they see at the post office, or mowing their yard next
down
door.
The street,
yeah. Absolutely, and they were thrilled to see the people that they normally see every day on the stage. And
now, do you have to know how to act to do community theater, or is that the beauty part of it? You can kind of, you know, this isn't Broadway per se.
Let me use my youngest daughter, Anna Capri. She came to the first audition that she ever came to, and her mom said, "Is there any way for Anna Capri to get a part without saying anything?"
So like a walk-on, or something, you know? Like
and we said, absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, because in that play, we were doing the best Christmas pageant ever. We needed a bunch of little kids to be in a classroom.
Yeah, perfect.
So I said, yes, you can, and she's the first person in the show now.
Wow.
And now, after 8 years of being in the theater, she complains that she doesn't get enough parts.
Wow, what a diva she turned into. What happened? Control this woman, will you?
And, you know, so yeah, So yes, what we try to do is say, if you're interested, come. We're at the point now where, like I said, we got 18, 19 people that were interested in Cinderella. We now get 100 to 120 people that audition for shows. So we say no to a lot more people than we ever thought we would. But when we say no to acting, we then say, but we'd love to have you be a part in the tech, or in the backstage, or in our hospitality part, or
when you have
costuming.
That's a good point. Yeah. You know, lots of background things in the background. But when you have that many people that are trying out for parts. I mean, you're at the point where I would imagine when you started auditioning, well, you know, beggars can't be choosers, so to speak. Now you can have auditions and you can kind of pick and choose the cream of the crop, right?
Right. And the hard part of that is that we then say no to people that we've fallen in love with in past plays.
How could that be? You know? Did they just don't fit they're not right for this particular part?
Absolutely.
Is that what it is?
Absolutely, yes.
What a temperamental director you are, huh? I'm sure you're a really nice guy. But let's talk about that for a second. Your directing skills, your ability, your daughter basically brought you into this,
Yes.
and you said, well, I'm a coach, I think I could be a director, but was it more of a daunting task than you thought it would be?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it's again, as a coach, my job was always to assess talent and put them in position so that as a team they functioned well.
And also motivate them a little bit. Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. And that's my job as a director.
Right.
But all of a sudden I had to know, the first play we did, we had, I think, 2 people that had ever done real plays before. I had done church plays and stuff, but it was the first time that we had 2 people that had done, and about the 3rd rehearsal she said, are we ever going to do any blocking? And I said,
what's that?
I have no idea. So I said, yeah, we'll get to that in the next few rehearsals. I had to go home and Google blocking, and find out what that was. It means like figuring out during this line, that's when I reach and get my cup, and
this is way more
then
complicated.
move to the right, and this exit needs to go off.
Well,
to
what were
the left.
you doing the whole time before that?
We were working on lines and character development and all that, and I was letting them kind of do their own blocking.
You were learning as you were directing. Wow.
I was just watching, saying, "Yeah, that's really good. You should do that again."
Maybe a few actions and a few cuts, and do you sit in the director's chair? Or
oh
what?
no, we're at a school right
Okay.
now, and so we're on benches usually.
Do you have one of those horns?
No.
Action. No, nothing like that.
I think they would throw me out.
Yeah.
Yes.
Who do you think you are?
Matter of fact, in the chaos of it all, again, my daughter gave us a great gift. She worked somewhere, and what they say when they try to get attention is, if you can hear my voice, clap once.
Right.
And people stop. I was yelling, "Oh, quiet on the set!" and they say, "No, that's for the movie."
Right, that's a good point.
So
Yeah, because it's not really a set.
No,
it's
not.
You're on stage,
Yeah.
but you have that movie mentality.
Yeah.
I wonder if could a film director direct a theater performance, or are they biting off more than they chew? Or do they not know what they're getting into, or maybe even vice versa?
I think it's 2 entirely different.
Very, very different.
And traits. I think a good director can probably do either, but you've got to learn an awful lot to make that transition and have good people by your side.
I think a good actor can do both, because you've heard of big time actors that also do stage,
right?
And I think they enjoy it. It kind of gives them it's almost like a way for them to get back to their roots in a way.
Right.
Or they also, if you do films all the time, you really appreciate the immediacy of audience reaction when you're doing theater, and we talked about that at the beginning of the show. That immediacy that's the great joy of doing theater, don't you think?
Oh, there's nothing better than to deliver a funny line well,
timing,
and hit the timing right, and do it all right, and have the audience just burst.
Yep.
There's
Wow,
nothing better.
There's nothing better than that. Yeah.
And there's nothing better than to do a really wonderful soliloquy and have it be quiet and just totally silent.
That means the audience is totally into what you're doing right now. They're paying attention to the craft that you're working on stage.
And you can feel that.
Yeah.
And at Swamp Meadow, we have a tendency to break the wall between the audience and we encourage their feedback, and so sometimes it's a much more raucous crowd than you'll get in many theaters.
So you'll get some audience participation.
Absolutely.
Yeah, is that right?
Absolutely.
Depending on what the performance is, right?
And so we rehearse, saying, okay, at this point, somebody may laugh, or somebody may cry, or somebody may boo you. You've got to be ready to just let that happen before you deliver your next line.
So after you've been directing for 10 years now or so?
Yep.
Okay. So you've learned a lot and learned what not to do, and how different is it for you now than it was back then, just getting started, aside from the knowledge that you've accumulated?
The biggest difference that we've learned, and we continue to learn each show, is how many people you really need to do it well. you know, when we did Cinderella, my daughter Amy produced it, and I directed it, and she didn't sleep for 3 months, worrying about every detail
This
there
is a
was to do.
15-year-old.
Yeah,
You know?
I almost had her flunk out of school. No, no,
That's how into it she was, though.
She was just going over every detail. Now we have probably about 30 people doing the job that she did.
And still all volunteers, right?
Yes, absolutely.
What's your daughter doing now 10 years later? Is she still involved heavily with it?
No, she went off to school at Fordham and figured out that theater was her hobby, not her career. She didn't want to do that as a career. She studied anthropology, so now she's traveled the world, but that will be a whole nother show.
Yeah.
She's been to places I've never been. And,
but you stayed on at the theater, though.
Well, you know, I did.
Yeah.
And that's probably the story of more than me in the theater, is that like I did it because of her, but now I love it.
Yeah.
It's a passion.
And she's the one that brought you in.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I didn't really even know I loved it. But I've acted. I got to play the role of my life was the Lion in Wizard of Oz, and I guess so do put 'em up, put 'em up. You know, it's so that was a great thing for me.
Courage. You wanted courage.
Courage.
Yeah.
I did. But we have families. That's the greatest thing about Swamp Meadow, is that people maybe bring their kids to the children's theater because they want their kids to have something to do in the summer. And I had one father that was during Peter Pan. He would just stand near me often and talk to me when he was picking up his children. And he'd say things like, you know, it'd be really funny if they just did this and that.
It's almost like he wanted to be a director.
I turned to him, I said, have you ever thought of directing? And now he's our director that dives into Shakespeare and Dracula and stuff like that, and makes it relevant for our rural community in Foster. And he's just done some great things. He had no idea he loved
Yeah, but
theater.
you could tell that was kind of bubbling out of him, the fact that he was giving those suggestions.
Absolutely. So that's what's happened over the 10 years, is people have either gotten somebody in their family involved, and then the rest of the family just finds their place in this wonderful community.
And it's also a form of entertainment that people can partake and participate in that's a little different than, you know, your typical maybe going out to dinner or a ball game or going to the movie theater, because, you know, it's not hugely popular into the. I think that it doesn't get promoted enough. I think enough people don't know about local community theater and how they can be involved, either just as a spectator or even be involved more so as a participant. Don't you think?
I do. I think that's one of the things that the families have learned at Swamp Meadow is that there's not many activities that you can go to that your child, your father, you know, that 3-4 generations can all take part in. And we've had 4 generations, you know, either, you know, we've had a grandchild filming, putting lights on their grandfather acting on stage. And that's, I mean, how often, even Little League, maybe you're coaching, but most of the time you're watching on the sidelines, which is an important thing, but you don't really feel a part of it.
Right.
Whereas in this, in a production, you have a family intimately involved in doing something good together and helping each other like look better.
Is community theater affordable for the family to attend?
That's our focus.
Yeah.
We try our best because we have some great theaters in Rhode Island and in Connecticut. We have the, you know, Trinity and Bradley on either side of us. Then there's lots of great community theaters, the GAM, all of them. We started at $5 a ticket, but we pay for rights, and we're doing Jesus Christ Superstar now. It costs us $2,500 just to get the rights to perform it.
Yeah.
And then we need lights and you know, so our tickets have gone all the way up to $12 for adults.
Right.
And we keep them at $7 for seniors or children. But it's cheaper than you can go to a movie.
Absolutely, you know.
You know. We set a family total at, you know, $40, $50 depending on the show. And then we also work with our Department of Human Services, where there's always free tickets available for anyone who can't afford to come.
Very nice. So there's really no reason for someone not to come and experience it and check it out.
Absolutely.
How long does a typical play go for someone who's going to make a night of it?
Some of our learning.
Yeah.
We did
this is going to be good.
We did one summer theater where I got the permission to rewrite the book Redwall and do it as a show.
Not a good experience?
Trying to fit 60 kids into that great book.
Yeah.
Took us 3 hours and 15 minutes. Ooh. Way too long to be sitting.
There's a reason why movies kind of have like a 2-hour cutoff point.
So that's we shoot for 2 hours now. With intermissions now, sometimes we hit 2:15. But we like to fall before 2 hours if we can.
That's perfect. Yeah. Does a community theater have like the ability to have beverages and concessions and stuff?
We're in a school. We're allowed to use their kitchen.
Okay.
We have concessions that we sell before and at intermission.
So a community theater will not necessarily have its own premises per se, but it'll utilize something that already exists, like for example a school. Is that how it works?
Well, that's how most people get started.
Okay.
5 years ago, we seriously have said we needed to incorporate. We need to get our own accounts. We stepped away from fostering arts so that we could have our own funds, because we're pursuing a building at this point.
Good luck. I hope that happens.
Well, so that means either raising $1.5 million to build new right on the corner of 6th and 94 in Foster.
Would that be your dream location if you could?
Yeah, that would be our dream. But Foster is out there. Mm-hmm. Our friends in Providence or in Hartford are going to say, I'm not driving. I got theaters right down the street. There's good reasons to come and see us. But it's, if we could land in Scituate, if we could land in, the other side, moving into Connecticut, there's 4 or 5 really good
that are real
theaters
close by,
and community theaters all there. So we don't really want to go in and infiltrate that turf.
Yeah.
But to move a little east, a little closer to Providence, wouldn't be a bad thing.
Although if you did move in there, you could, the actors and everyone could kind of make the rounds. It would be like a circuit, like the comedians go and do all the comic clubs.
And we have that. I mean, most of the people that are involved with us now have either gone on to other theaters and when they're doing shows, because we can only do like 3 or 4 a year.
Right, because of the availability.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So, and they've brought friends back from other theaters, and we've made a name for ourselves now. We've had, we have the Motif magazine in Providence, which gives awards for community theaters and regular theaters and all sorts of arts. But we've been nominated quite a few times, but we've had 2 winners over the last few years.
Congratulations. Yeah. That's something to be proud of, and I hope you display it prominently for everyone to see.
That's why we need a building.
Yeah, so you can show it up.
We need a picture of my daughter as the founder.
There you go.
Well,
you're a proud man, aren't you?
I am. And then pictures of those folks who have won those awards. And
I know it's community theater, and a lot of the local people get involved. Do you ever have like a bigwig come through at all, step on the stage, or be a part of it ever, or is that like maybe if it could happen at some point?
We haven't yet. Yeah. I tried. We wanted to do Robin Hood Men in Tights, so we talked to Mel Brooks. His people. I didn't quite get to him. Yeah. I got to his people. We asked him for rights. And we offered him a walk-on role because we knew he loved that.
Yeah.
But he's
busy schedule.
Well, unfortunately, Young Frankenstein was opening up on Broadway at that point, and I think he's holding all his back now because I think he's got some money things. They transferred to the theater really well.
Yeah.
So he didn't give us permission. So we didn't get him. We haven't had anyone absolutely famous.
It may happen by surprise. It just kind of drop in your lap one day, and you'll certainly, you're hoping you'll take advantage of it if it does happen.
I guess the most famous people we've had is in Foster, Aubrey Atwater and Elwood Donnelly live. They're folk musicians that are nationally known, and I hear them sing all the time. I listened to their songs. We ended up doing a musical based on their songs.
No kidding.
And they played for us, and we sold out, 6 shows, and it was a huge hit.
How's a community theater like yours handle the economy the way it is? Is it, it's not, discretionary income that people have to spend? Community theater may not be at the top of their list if they are able to spend money.
Yep.
How do you deal with that?
I think it's actually helped us.
Oh, yeah?
Hurt us in the building search because funding's down.
Yeah.
But it's helped us because now your choice is, are you going to spend $32 to go into Providence, to pay the gas to go into Providence and watch a show, or are you going to spend $10 to $12 and stay right around home.
Not to mention parking in Providence, you know, if you're going to go out to
Exactly,
dinner and
exactly.
stuff.
And we did, we finally, one of the things we did that was bigger than we thought we could was we did a Christmas Carol. Because Trinity does a Christmas Carol every year, so do a lot of theaters, but we wanted to take a shot at it, and we did it, and people came, and one woman, you know, was leaving, and she said, that was better than Trinity's.
Ooh.
And I said to her, you know, it really wasn't.
Yeah.
You know, they're much better than us. You know, they're better actors. They have better sets. But she said, okay, that was a better experience than I experienced at Trinity.
And you can't argue with that because you can't tell how. Only she knows how she feels.
Absolutely, and that's what we try to do. We try to present a theater experience that makes you fall in love with the theater.
Absolutely.
That's what we try to do.
So, you know, we certainly encourage people to go out, experience Swamp Meadow Community Theater, and community theater in general, experience it. And if you want to get involved in some capacity, whether it be on stage or behind the scenes in some capacity, I'm sure, Bob, you are, you know, always looking for anyone willing to want to be a part of it. You have a website. Where do they go for that?
It's www.swampmeadow.org.
All right. And so on there, all the information, I'm sure you have links to social media as well.
Absolutely.
All right,
we're on Facebook.
Go check it out, and go check out the Swamp Meadow Community Theater. Bob Hollis, the executive director, it's been a pleasure having you on the show today.
Thank you, sir.
I wish you all the success in the world.
Well,
too.
thank you very much.
And thank you for joining us for another edition of For the Record. I'm Sean Murphy. You can see this show and many others on our YouTube sites, and we will see you next time. Take care.